Because we're actually getting into the game right now. Be right back, though. All right. The finals of the Open Cup TvZ. In the top left of Lightshade, we have the Red Terran and Mal's HeRoMaRinE. In the bottom right, as the Blue Zerg, we have Clash's Reynor. Are you in a fancy building? No, not really. I guess it's not legal in your state. No, marijuana is not legal in my state. But even if it was legal, I mean, there's no doubt that being courteous does mean not just letting, you know, not just smoking wherever you possibly can. Because let's be real, marijuana smoke is not very good smelling. That's why they're also complaining about the cigarette smoke, which is why they said this, you know, be courteous to your neighbors, not necessarily we'll call the cops on you. Although they did threaten legal action. I'm just like, how about you don't? Or if there is going to be, you know, legal action, how about you break up the birthday parties? I don't know. I'm actually not sure what our state's current law is for gatherings of people. I think recently I read the curfew times. So it's like after 12 a.m. up until like 6 a.m. you can't do a bunch of stuff. Which is like, oh no. Anyway. But I think before then it's kind of free game. You just have to wear a mask everywhere. And I don't think they're like... Well, they might be stopping large gatherings of 10 or more. I actually have no idea. Because I don't do that. So. Ooh, a Reaper already getting a drone. Reynor, he's off his game. HeRoMaRinE going for a 3cc opener. We saw a lot of this from Clem. And I mentioned that it's just kind of the thing to do. It's just very in meta. It is now the new standard. Almost. Not quite the new standard, but it's almost the new standard. Whereas the 1-Rax expand into 111 was the standard. Now it seems to be the 3cc 111. Especially if you're going to go into a Banshee follow-up, it's really not that dangerous.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
And if you're scouting, it's very good. And if you're with someone that you just don't think is going to all in, which Reynor certainly can all in, it's just more likely he's going to do something trickier than that. Not like a big punch to your face type of move, but rather a slight of hand movement type thing instead. So he's got Lings in a perfectly positioned, perfectly timed run by. He's got faster mutas than you would expect. He's got a surround set up that you didn't expect, you know, that type of stuff. That is sometimes feels a little bit cheesy in the idea that if you don't scout it, it's very powerful. You know, if we think cheese is that. I always thought cheese was, if it's unscouted, it's powerful and it has to happen before like 7 minutes in the game. That's my description of cheese. But anyways, but that's more what we think of Reynor than as, not so much the whole build a roach for and attack with roaches. He can certainly do that. His Overload actually gets in to confirm the 3rd CC, and then also see that it's going to be into a Viking, which, you know, it's not exactly fast enough to do very much about it. If the Overlord had gotten in there prior to 4 minutes, I actually think there could be a response from Reynor, but yeah, he's not. He's going into what looks to be Fast Spire. Still getting a Bailey Nest at a pretty safe time. Both safe, as in it could help against Hellbats, and safe as in, like, it's going to be able to start centrifugal hooks ASAP. HeRoMaRinE actually built, I thought, a second factory. I did see it correctly. I did. So he's going into Blue Flame Hellions, and then after that into Bio. Very interesting. Mr. Loopy, thanks for the 5 months. Some Hellion harassment around that third base. Getting a little dangerously close to those drones. HeRoMaRinE actually not diving in though, just kind of figuring there must be enough Lings to stop him. And it's not this attack that he's really gearing up for, it's the next attack with Blue Flame anyways. Funnily enough, there really weren't that many Lings, and Reynor could have lost a good chunk of drones, because 10 more just popped, oversaturating that base. But as it is. HeRoMaRinE didn't know it, and HeRoMaRinE wanted to go for this push with as many Hellions as possible. We got Blue Flame, we got Hellbats, we even have a Medevac on the way. Reynor does have some Banelings, of course. This attack doesn't really hit, you know, anytime before you would expect Banelings. But the Hellions, oh, if they don't run into the Banelings, oh, this isn't going too well. Can actually kite the Banelings. Now, Banelings aren't light, unlike their Ling counterparts. But you can definitely kite the Banelings, that's for sure. It's really not working out so well. HeRoMaRinE walked into them first. And then the Queens have actually been really wearing the Hellions down over time. 4 Hellions in the main base do manage to get 5 drones, but only 2 more Hellions remain. Medevac gets awfully low. It's gonna get killed by whatever Queen's over here. There is no Queen over here. Ah! Lucky HeRoMaRinE gets away with that. I thought for sure that was going to be dead. Speaking of anti-air, actually, I was expecting that Hydralisk or the Spire, and it's actually going to be a Hydralisk den after a big delay, too. I thought the lair was going to be used faster for lair things, but it was only used to get a very well, respectable Baneling speed timing, which has certainly made Reynor a bit more safe. It's actually going to be into Hydras with some decently timed upgrades on par with HeRoMaRinE's upgrades. HeRoMaRinE's still using these Hellions to at least clean up some creep spread, but as far as the opener goes, it's not what HeRoMaRinE wanted. Because in a perfect situation, he actually wins the game off of it. But it's not too bad either. He still gets to use the Hellions. He's still trying to do some harassment. And he still, you know, managed to get a 3rd CC up and running, fully saturated with a 4 CC on the way. And it's not like he doesn't use 2 factories. He eventually gets a Drilling Claws and triple Widowmine production. So I still don't hate it for HeRoMaRinE, but it really would have been a lot nicer for him to just go ahead and kill Reynor. He does manage to get a cancel on a 5th base, so that's good news. And a free Queen as well. We're having a skedaddle. It's gonna exchange some Hellbats for some Banelings, which is better for HeRoMaRinE. Almost surrounded, though. He is gonna get surrounded. The Banelings are allowed to glide in, and Medevac cannot save any of them. Reynor's finally gonna get rid of that annoyance. It was mostly an annoyance, though. Oh, look at this. Those Baneling drops are becoming so popular even in this matchup. HeRoMaRinE actually bothers to get 2 missile turrets. On the outer edges like this, it's because he knew the Baneling drops were coming. Those are not anti-muta locations for missile turrets. Nine more drones go down to Drilling Claws. Oh, just regular old Widowmine drop before Widowmines. Still pretty scary stuff to deal with. Another Widowmine drop over to that 3rd base, but literally everything was there, so that didn't work out. Baneling drop still being denied by the looks of it. Actually being killed right now as only a single Baneling gets a roll in, which will not kill an SCV. Even if it had upgrades. SCVs have 5 more health than you pleb probes. Nah. Medevac's flying every which way, but unfortunately over creep tumors is really making the cleanup job a little bit easier for Reynor. It's still distracting and it's still occasionally getting some damage done, but ooh, it's getting less and less in returns. I don't know. That one didn't feel so good. This one also only getting a handful of Lings is not exactly what you would want. HeRoMaRinE is trying to take this and actually use it to push at the front. And that's the ideal situation for Terrans. They're distracting, they're harassing, they're doing damage, and they just have a one really big, powerful push to the front that kills their opponent. It's not going to happen here. At best, it actually grabs that 5th or 6th hatchery, actually, and then gets out, which it does get out. And so, as such, it's not bad at all. 4 medevacs still alive. All the Marines still alive. That's not too bad. Reynor, however, is now on 5 bases mining with 84 workers. 93 workers, I'm sorry. 84 was SCP count. And Reynor is trying to work his way up into those lurkers. His hive is already done. But it does look, I actually think that Reynor is messing up macro-wise. He's dealing with so many things that, well, even while he's dealing with them with a very strong economy, and certainly a large enough army, he's not actually getting as fast to things he would usually be faster to, I think. Just the hive timing is very off from the lurker timing, and the lurker den obviously is needed to even use the hive for the upgrades, right? So, seems like it's mistimed. He'd love to already be working on at least range. Whereas now, he's going to now get into range, and then a bit later on into the speed burrow. Oh well. The hive did finish when there was a lot of things to keep track of. 7 lurkers are immediately formed. Unfortunately, the queens are found trying to replace that creep, which HeRoMaRiNE's been doing a very good job of denying. Still enough for Reynor to work with, but ooh, not at this rate actually. HeRoMaRiNE being very aggressive with his army, even on creep still, is feeling confident enough to do so. He's got his tanks sieged. He scans ahead to see that there's not really an army well positioned to defend. And he's gonna have to hope that the receding happens a bit faster. It's not exactly receded yet. Reynor's already coming in with a bunch of units surrounding the Terran forces, lurkers included. And HeRoMaRiNE is going to be forced to disengage. Grabs a handful of banelings as they try to retreat, but that's not all of HeRoMaRiNE's army. Whereas that was actually most of Reynor's army. It was a good surround by Reynor, but maybe waiting a little while longer would have been better. It's hard to say. If he had waited, then there's 4 more tanks involved. But maybe if he had waited, he would have thought about getting Vipers and trying to buy time. But then if he had waited, he also would have lost his upgrade. So, like, yeah, I don't think there's actually a really good scenario right there. He wanted to buy more time or already be to where he's getting to now. He wanted to already have the Lurker upgrades done and the Vipers done. And actually, it has become a lot more common for the burrow speed to be researched first. Like Dark does it. Reynor is actually finishing his 2nd upgrade now. So that's the good news. Bad news is he may not have any lurkers to actually use those upgrades. 2 of them get taken out, leaving Reynor with only 2 more left over. Viper's going to try and come in and do some damage, but didn't even have enough for a blinding cloud. I'm not sure they do. That first one doesn't. Lings from the backside do jump on top of a lot of tanks, and they're very, very effective for the amount of Lings that were sacrificed there. But the rest of the fight didn't go so well. The rest of the fight went quite poorly because Reynor didn't have enough units. So those Lings, I mean, they were like on the lose. Does a losing team ever get an MVP medal? Because that's what happened there. I guess it happens a lot, actually. It's the whole point of the MVP medal. But anyways, it's not looking so good for Reynor. HeRoMaRiNE even clearing up the Nidus Storm in his main base with ease. Reynor set back on 4 bases. At least his 4th was his 5th, so it's actually pretty new. That's kind of the only good news right now for Reynor. Lurker count at 7 with both upgrades done is looking a bit more impressive. And there is, I mean, if there's a style that really gets you back into a game by being defensive and just being very, very safe, it is the Lurker style. It's like trying to play like a Terran with a bunch of tanks in TvT. It's like, well, if my tanks are always in position, then I can recover from this. This is recoverable. Whereas if you're like on Ling Baneling Muter, you're kind of just hoping for like a base race gone awry. That is a decent number of Hydras in the main base, but that is a hell of a Medivacs. Even with 7 Hydras and 2 Spore Crawlers, 9, 10 Medivacs still are able to unload in the main. My goodness, what a risky call there from HeRoMaRiNE, but it's going to pay off. Spawning pool goes down, Hive's going to fall. That ramp is covered. The Viper's trying to come in for a couple of blinding clouds are being denied so far. Actually, 1 goes down, a very good blinding cloud indeed. And the Lurkers do manage to get up that ramp and burrow underneath all of those tanks. Only the Marines will survive that fight. Could have been an okay trade there if HeRoMaRinE wasn't doing so much better in the economy, right? I think if we looked at the battle report, it would have been fair enough on the resources trade, but HeRoMaRinE just has so many more resources. Reynor needs better than that. He, at the very least, needs to make sure that his lurkers stay alive, but you know what? That happened. The lurkers were all kept alive in that recent engagement. Maybe 1 or 2 went down. But most people went down were the Hydras that were trying to defend that, a Viper that tried to go for the Blinding Cloud, and then I guess a handful of Lings, right? 5th base being denied on both sections. This one seems like the most realistic opportunity to get a 5th base, since most of HeRoMaRiNE's army is up to the north. HeRoMaRiNE is expanding very, very, very well. Lots of extra bases coming down here. Continuing to upgrade, too. Reynor lost his upgrades on the forward attack, defense, whatever, and has never had the time to rebuild them. So he's always been out upgraded, but lurkers, kind of like tanks, like they, you know, they're still pretty damn effective even without upgrades. That's a lot of lurkers, up to 16 now. HeRoMaRiNE's not advancing into any additional technology. He's not trying to go into ghosts. He's not trying to go into libs with range, and that does give some hope to Reynor. If he can control this as close to perfect as possible, then the lurker army can beat the tank army and can actually beat it to a pulp in the right scenario. A good blinding cloud, more than enough abducts, that type of thing. Which is what currently Reynor's trying to do, a slow and steady pace here as he's using energy to take out those tanks. He's already taken out, what, 5 of them, leaving only 3 left. Drop of the main base is currently being handled by Lings that are out upgraded, but get the good surround. 2 lurkers protect this base from any drop as well, and Reynor seems to be bringing this back. He's also got a Nidus Worm once again in the main base, right in the heart of the production. 2 Marines, a couple of tanks here in the nick of time, I would say. Only 1, oh, 2 lurkers pop out, my bad. Oh, what's this? HeRoMaRiNE not paying attention for a hot second, but without any creep spread, without any banelings, wasn't really all that scary, and the lurkers are not actually in place here. Lurkers actually making up, I guess, for any banelings that would otherwise be made. A couple of blinding clouds go down, but it's not really the tanks that were the biggest problem in that fight. It was the amount of Marines and the lack of lurkers. With the lurkers here, HeRoMaRiNE is going to move away, just do a drop into the main where there is currently nothing, but Reynor, he's a smart lad. He knows what the plan would be. Sets up his lurkers in a very, very defensive position, almost inviting HeRoMaRiNE to overcommit on top of that hive. Good scan there from HeRoMaRiNE, though. He's going to just circumvent it. Reynor is missing a lot of creep spread. He's really missing intel. He doesn't have intelligence on what is happening on the map, and he doesn't have any possible way of counterattacking. That one Nidus Worm was his hope. But that Nidus Worm and the lurkers were also cleaned up very, very quickly. He's gonna jump on top of these tanks. Not a lot of Marines to cover them, so the lurkers are gonna take those out. I think a couple lurkers did die in the trade. Again, wouldn't have been the biggest of deals if Reynor also had a good economy. He's getting there again. He still has 57 workers, which is enough to saturate, you know, 2.5 bases. But he would like them to be more bases and more drones. There's no doubt about that. That's just what you would want. That's the Zerg philosophy. More bases, more good. Uh-oh. Hydras are forced to even suicide on top of these Liberators to save the lurkers, and they will do so, barely saving the lurkers, but in comes a concave of Marines, just good enough to take out the lurkers that have no other support. They weren't supporting each other well enough either. 16, 15 more lurkers are available. Gonna try and save this base. Not gonna be able to. Blinding clouds will come down, but that's not all the lurkers. Reynor has spread his lurker line a little too thin. Especially on Lightshade, you know, where there are so many ample opportunities for concaves, especially on this base, honestly. Did I hear an EMP? I did hear an EMP. Those Vipers were soaking energy and then went down to 0 energy. It was a graphic I don't think I've ever seen before. Tanks once again on high ground, and I'm not sure there's much that can be done about that. Lurkers are trying to do a counterattack, a desperate plea to get some momentum back on Reynor's side. It did not work out. Reynor was very close to bringing this game back. He actually got up to 180 supply again. But HeRoMaRiNE out-multitasked him, out-positioned him. And Reynor's gonna lose game 1. And again, lurkers are they're desperately trying to do something, but there's Liberators now. So even if the concave of the reinforcements doesn't cut it. The biggest threat when stuff like this happens, GG, is that the lurkers will at least distract. So as you're like carefully sieging your liberators, your army gets pummeled, but there was no chance for that. Reynor had already lost too much of his army. Well played by HeRoMaRinE, who really is playing some of the fastest StarCraft I feel like I've seen from him. In the pacing and the amount of micro that he's doing, it feels like he's, Can we continue with the Dragon Ball Z reference from earlier? It feels like he's Majin Buu and he just soaked up Clem. In his essence, I guess. He turned Clem into chocolate and then ate him. It's been a while since I've rewatched the Dragon Ball Z Majin Buu saga, to be honest. I kind of forgot what Buu did. I was like, does he like Kirby? Does he like open his mouth and he just gets sucked in? Like, that's right, he turned him into chocolate. That's a lot of spectators. Apparently Valorant has like a spectator interface, lobby, whatever, that only allows like 4 spectators or something. Maybe that's old news, but I just continuing to be astounded by StarCraft 2's accessibility when it comes to replays compared to other games. Of course, it's missing the biggest and best thing that other esports have, which is the ability to look at tournaments in clients, and that's always going to be the biggest bummer of StarCraft. But it does have, I mean, the accessible replays is just huge. You don't even have to, like, engage with a person in real life for the start of your StarCraft casting career. Is it better for it? Yeah, technically, sure. But like, you don't have to. You can just set up a YouTube or a Twitch that only casts replays. And you'll be casting, like, the best of the best. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. Anyways. In the top right is the Red Terran. He is HeRoMaRinE. In the bottom left of Oxide, we have the Blue Zerg Reynor. Chocolate thing freaked me out as a kid. What a way to die. It was weird though, because you'd think when they get turned to chocolate, they just die then and there. But then they figure out that they're actually like kept in like a stasis type thing in Majin Buu, don't they? Don't they intentionally get eaten? It's weird, man. It's weird. And I talked a lot about the opener last game, trying to analyze on the spot whether or not that blue flame thing was really worth it. I do think when you combine everything together, that it kind of was. I don't think it's worth it so much that you do it again and again and again and again as an opener. But when everything was taken into consideration, the amount of lings that you kill with it, the amount of creep that you can clear up with it, the amount of harassment that you can do with it, and it even continued to, like, deny fourth bases, like, And it does swiftly move into the double pumped Widow Mines, or tanks. Once he realized where the game was going, HeRoMaRinE did swap into tanks, and then I think he also had a third factory finished. As long as they're in the correct patch for replays. When people say that the replays break with a new patch, they don't mean that they're actually broken, never to be used again. It means that you have to reload StarCraft from the previous patch, which isn't really an issue. Like, I think you have to actually be, like, maybe any of, like, the humongous patches, like, obviously an expansion patch breaks, like, truly breaks replays. You can't open up a Wings of Liberty replay. I think, like, maybe patch 4.0 also broke replays, so maybe you couldn't cast replays from, like, 2018. I have no idea, honestly. I've never tried. But as far as, like, oh, I missed casting TSL 6 replays, I guess I can't now. No, you can. So there is a wealth of replays. Overlord gets into the main base and sees that it is a completely different build here. No third CC, right into the Hellion and Banshees, in fact. Single Marine drop. Well, a single medevac drop with Marines. Very uncommon thing to see. HeRoMaRinE maybe taking some inspiration from Beyond, who's really been mixing it up as far as what a Terran player has to do as part of an opener. For a very long time, you had two choices. Hellion opener or 2-1-1. And then for a long time, it was literally just Hellion openers or fuck you too. And then Beyond kind of brought back the 2-1-1. Or TY kind of brought in like the third CC 2-on-1, made it look really good. But now we're at a point where, yeah, mostly Beyond is showing that you don't have to just go into a factory and build Hellions. You can go into it and build Hellions and then swap off and build Marines immediately. Or build Marines and only build Hellions from a single production line at a time, right? Or you can go into Marine production with a drop and a battlecruiser, because why the hell not? Really trying to, I guess, do what probably the StarCraft 2 designers wanted, which was for the Terran race to be as flexible as possible. Oh, good clear up there on the creep tumors. There's quite a few of them. They wanted the Terran race to be scrappy, because we're not very smart, and we're not very good at, like, reproducing like the Zergar. But we scrappy. So they made us... They let us use, like, each other's tech labs. And it doesn't matter if it's a factory tech lab or a barracks tech lab, they're all the same thing. And then they are like, what if we just gave them a very straight and narrow tech tree? It feels like Beyond's really been trying to prove that you can do whatever swaps you want and still win the game. It's trying to prove. It's not really quite there yet. Hellion and Banshee so far being pushed away. Reynor did go into a fairly timed lair to make sure he has an Overseer to not take a whole lot of headache from the Banshees. Obviously, you can deal with Banshees. They're just queens well placed with Spore Crawlers, but it's a big headache when they can just go unsupervised because you're getting a very late lair. Drops also being cleared up as Reynor. I mean, one thing he did fairly well last game was predict what was going to happen as far as the drops. It's just that he was unable to predict how much of the drop or when the drop is going to happen exactly. And then he lost so much sight with his creep spread. Banelings colliding with Hellions. That's still not exactly what you want to use your Banelings for, though. But HeRoMaRinE is starting to lose way too many SCVs and way too much mining time. This Ling run by was perfectly timed. The most awkward possible timing for HeRoMaRinE to defend it. Just as he was getting another round of production out. The 13th SCV will go down before the Marines finally push that back. HeRoMaRinE, you know, trying to prioritize pushing over that defense made him lose maybe more than he should have, but maybe the push will actually win him the game. It is in a very nasty position, actually jumping on top of the upgrades, which is what Reynor was specifically going for with this build, by the way. You don't get very fast technology, but you do get some pretty well-timed upgrades, and it's not even going to finish. Might not be enough units from the Terran forces to actually hold on here, but no, actually it is way more than enough. The Banelings evaporated. They couldn't quite connect with the Marines, and the reinforcements come in very perfectly timed, like a movie right now. And that's so many Marines that they can actually take down all of these Banelings. Reynor knows that he's trying to hold on to them, build more Banelings that they kind of cover each other. But, you know, it's not even just the Marines. There's still a tank siege up. There's a second tank now reinforcing here. And Reynor is not going to lose just his upgrades. He might actually lose the base itself. He's going to go for, once again, a wraparound, or at least try and buy some time, catch some of these reinforcements, which he does. But Reynor, oh man. Those upgrades twice now have been in very unfortunate positions. I don't know if HeRoMaRinE has straight up won the game right here, right now, but it certainly kind of feels like it. Lings and Banelings going to go for a run-by the looks of it. They will be able to take out this army. Not as effectively as they would want, though, and actually Reynor's not going to be able to do it. He's not going to bother trying. Especially without that 1-1 done. These Lings are just really quite lame. Off creep, even with this amount of Banelings, might not be enough. It is, as HeRoMaRinE was not quite prepared to deal with both sides of the engagement. The sandwich did work out well enough for Reynor to hold on for another second, another minute. But you gotta be careful with the type of army that Reynor has right now, which is like mostly Banelings, right? If they're off creep, even if there's 50 of them, you don't want to trade that out. That's not how you want to use Banelings. You want to let the Lings die the front of the charge, and for the Banelings to get those connections as good as possible. That's what HeRoMaRinE's certainly taking advantage of. You can see his stutter step. He knows that as soon as the buffer units, the ones that are supposed to be in front of the Banelings, are gone, and the Banelings themselves just need to be a little bit microed against, and then you can take every one of them out. Even without the tank fire. But of course, with the tank fire, it gets a lot easier. And again, 2 tanks sieged up in really nasty positions. HeRoMaRinE's still rattling across the map. Reynor's added on a couple of Hydras, but it's hard to say that useful in this type of scenario. He's also trying to get up to a Hive. His Hive is going to be done around the same time as 1-1 is done. That's not a very good sign. They try and come in here, but it's mostly off of creep through a couple of chokes. From the backside, the Banelings are going to collide in with some of the Marines, and actually a pretty nice collide in at the very end of the engagement. Marauders, or rather Hydras, also coming from the backside, clearing the rest of this up, or no, being cleaned up as HeRoMaRinE's reinforcements come forward with the superior upgrades. They're about to have 2-2 against 0-0. Reynor has once again bought time. He's once again leveled out the supplies, but it just feels like both of them were just on like the cusp of being pushed back entirely. Either HeRoMaRinE's about to be pushed back entirely, or Reynor's about to be just cut, completely cut off of his reinforcements and as such lose the game. It's been on a knife's edge for a while, but it seems like HeRoMaRinE has finally pushed Reynor over the edge. GG. HeRoMaRinE with a 2-0 lead. HeRoMaRinE about to not just 3-0 Clem, but getting close to 3-0ing Reynor as well. Would be one of his strongest performances in the Open Cup. he's defeated very good names before, but kind of at times where they aren't really the best names. Like 7 months ago, if he defeated Clem 3-0 and then defeated Showtime 3-1 or something, we'd be like, oh, that's really impressive, but it's not totally bewildering. Nowadays, right now, if he would 3-0 Clem and then immediately 3-0 Reynor, that would just be very, very impressive. No doubt about it. He's close to doing it. It's a good sign for him. Katowice is like almost next week. Well, that's Monday, isn't it? So 2 weeks away. It's bad news for Reynor, who has really been putting in a lot of practice. He's been tweeting his MMR and saying how much he's grinding out games, and he's really trying to practice hard for Katowice. And it's always a nice feeling when you put in all that practice and then it actually comes out to a victory for you, even in a smaller cup like this one, but a small cup that still has a lot of competition in it. Then it kind of feels like, okay, this was the test, I passed. It was a quiz, right? This is the quiz and I passed the quiz, which means the test should also be somewhat easy. I got this. Right now he's kind of failing the quiz. I mean, yeah, the EPT Cup is very competitive, sure, but it's not as competitive as Katowice. So if he doesn't win it, even against a HeRoMaRinE who is absolutely on fire, it still wouldn't be the best result for Reynor. Just specifically to him as a player that we have very high expectations for. Looking a bit deep into it, honestly, things could immediately change if they hit the ladder right after the series. Absolutely, Reynor could then just take 3 games off of HeRoMaRinE. Could easily see it happening. And they do still have, what, 12 days until Katowice begins. 20th, guys. Apparently the BlizzCon Online is happening soon, too. And they were so kind. Blizzard is so kind to us, you guys. They were so kind to include what is, I think, about 4 seconds of StarCraft 2 esports in their trailer. That's a whole 4 seconds more than what they included in the 2019 wrap-up video. Isn't that great? Isn't that good? Yeah. It's amazing. These cups give points. They do not right now. They only give money. Alright, so Reynor not really being able to play his game, it feels like. I mean, it's not necessarily the worst game from the beginning. It's just that it seems like fairly quickly he goes from defending everything perfectly to guesstimating what HeRoMaRiNE's next plan is pretty well to just suddenly being a little too out of position or too few units, or his evolution chambers are in weird positions, you know? Whichever one. So it kind of seems like, honestly, like a bit of scouting is his issue. But I don't mean build scouting. He actually got a very good scout in the first game, and I don't know if he actually got a scout in the second game too well, but he is definitely going to get a scout in this third game. And HeRoMaRiNE is going for a fusion core, so perhaps Reynor, seeing that HeRoMaRiNE continues to change up his builds, is like, I'm not going to let you try and get away with something now. I'm actually going to go for the Overlord speed. He's going to see the fusion core. And Reynor is going to deal with the Hellions that went to his main base as well. Hellions get 4 drone kills. We'll also get a scout. They don't see a Roach Warren, so the battle cruiser is a-okay to begin. If they had seen a Roach Warren, that's when he built a Banshee instead. And he knows he's been scouted. I'm not sure that's really what matters, because as I was saying, I don't think Reynor's lack of scouting builds has really been his problem. Seems like he's been mostly on top of things. The Hellions didn't do as much damage as I would have thought with the Blue Flame. In the last game, the drop with the Hellions didn't really seem to do too much either. It's a headache to deal with, sure, but they didn't seem to do too much. And, this game obviously scouted everything, so the battlecruiser should not be doing a whole lot of damage, but it's more about the scouting later on. It's like keeping track of all the drops of the attack timings of the size of the army that's about to hit him. That seems to be more what's starting Reynor off on a bad side of things. As the engagements get going, feels like he's never been in control of the engagements. So let's see if that can change. The battlecruiser might have been scouted, but it's still a big honking unit that can tank a lot and distract a lot. But oh boy, oh boy. Walk right into 7 queens there. Fortunately, Death Aura has enough dead space in the back that it can safely wait out its teleport cooldown. Not ideal. It's definitely not ideal, though. The battlecruiser is supposed to be doing something, anything. If it passes by a drone line for even 1 second, it can do something. If it passes by a creep tumor, that's something. You know, if it keeps the queens at home while the Hellions kill a couple creep tumors, I guess that is still something, too. But the battlecruiser does want to escape. It doesn't just want to wait for its teleport again. And HeRoMaRinE does manage to slide it off into the right. Maybe go after the 4th base at this point. Reynor's all over it. But it's playing out the exact way I feel like the last 2 games have played out, where I'm like, no, Reynor's on top of it. Reynor's guessing where the drop is going, where the battlecruiser's going. Yeah, seems fine. Seems perfect even. And then HeRoMaRinE does the actual push. And it's not so fine for Reynor. But his things really do seem to be going very well for Reynor. I just gotta have to say it. It's the truth. 5 bases on the way. Creep tumors starting to really spread out. HeRoMaRinE does have a double drop finally ready to go. His 3rd CC, having recently landed, is actually protected by a tank and a couple of Hellions, so no run by to mess him up here. Reynor's got queens in position already, but they do need some Ling support. 1 queen gets bopped. A little late to that transfuse, and transfused on the wrong queen. Or maybe it was just late to the transfuse. Either way. Battlecruiser in the main could go down if you're not paying attention to it. Shouldn't, though. Teleport was ready to go. It scouts the main base and maybe sees a little bit of a weakness, so the drop's going to go into the main. Reynor very good about having this creep tumor down, though, to scout this type of thing. Should have a little bit of a faster reaction. Not just 1 Spore Crawler in the main, but 2. And this 1 Spore Crawler is surprisingly obnoxious to Terrans that are trying to drop you. The Terran player, I can confirm. It's surprisingly obnoxious. Reynor's already up to 86 workers, working on his 2-2. And I guess gonna go into Hydras again. His difficult hooks is almost done. So I think he should be okay against this push. It's a bit of a scary timing, sure. But 10 seconds to go on Baneling speed. Big surround coming in as well. Reynor is going to be able to clear this up, and HeRoMaRinE just has to evacuate with what he can, take down the units while he can. Yeah. Any last-minute tank shots, trying to get those last-minute Baneling hits. Didn't really get any. Spore Crawler is repositioned actually to a forward place, and HeRoMaRinE not paying attention to his army anyways. Loses the Marines and the medevac. Reynor is all over this. The battlecruiser has come back in. It's set its sights on the 5th base. It's all well and good to deny the 5th base from mining, but it's also not a good sign to see a 5th base mining. That is 93 drones for Reynor. And HeRoMaRinE, I mean, he's got his 4th base on the way. He's doing everything he should. It just doesn't... And this feels like the game Reynor is always supposed to have, and they never quite did. Where he is in absolute control of these engagements. I don't know if HeRoMaRinE can actually turn it around in this time. It doesn't feel like he should be able to. This feels like a game where Reynor actually just is too big to fail. Battlecruiser is being surprisingly annoying, forcing the queens to react every which way, but Reynor's also got enough APM to spread around, so he's going to deal with the medevac drops. Oh, this is quite clever. Yeah, he wants that big ball of banelings with that tank shot. Quite clever indeed. Battlecruiser still distracting. Another drop headed off to the left side. There's queens and lings, though. Drop to the right, still trying to get those banelings into the tank shot. Battlecruiser is going to be teleported away, and it's really hard to keep up with HeRoMaRinE right now. But Reynor's able to do it. HeRoMaRinE finally loses one of the drops. This attack still is going on, but it's obviously not getting very much. It's not going places. It's just trying to get a couple of cheeky baneling shots. And now that the triple-pronged attack is done, he's going to go ahead and just back away for a second, actually reinforce, but get to a safe location where Reynor can't overrun him. But HeRoMaRinE has really not made the same headway he has in the previous 2 games. Reynor has been on 90 plus workers for a long time. 5 bases, lots of creep spread. Upgrades are totally fine as well. And he's actually getting to Hive and Lurkers speedier than he did in the first game. I think. Yeah, Lurkerden's already done. Baneling's going to collide with the Marines on the front line, but then forced to retreat. It's actually not that impressive of an army for HeRoMaRinE right now if Reynor was actually to collapse in with every bit of his army. There's not a lot of tanks. There's only 1, in fact. It's just an attack that's supposed to try and lift and get out. Maybe find Reynor a little missplit, miscontrolled, sure, but not much more than that. HeRoMaRinE is moving on into a lot of Marauders at this point. His army is about to get real chonky. He's also moving on into Widow Mines. So that was 1 tank and 1 Widow Mine, my mistake. But now he's actually moving into Widow Mines. Getting a Liberator range, double starports coming down, really moving and grooving into that late game, trying to set up for what he knows is going to be a very intimidating Hydra, Baneling, Lurker force. This isn't a position where he has so much momentum that he just out-positions it, out-micros it like that first game. He actually needs to tackle it kind of head-on. He does manage to get a nice little push to the left side to kill all of the Creep Tumor Queens. Widow Mines do burrow as well. Lings coming in one at a time, obviously not very effective. And here, we're actually not even going to overstay his welcome. He's going to evacuate as soon as he figures the armies are coming. Battlecruiser will finally die. Goodbye, Battlecruiser. But it looks like Lurkers got a little over-eager off to the right side. And at least one of them died. Not a whole lot of Creep Tumors over on the right. 2 Lurkers siege up, but not enough to deal with what is like 20 Marines. Both of them go down. Maybe I spoke too soon about HeRoMaRinE not being able to out-multitask this. He's certainly trying, but Reynor can afford these losses, which is a very different story than his first game, where he was taking good trades, actually. Good enough, losing only a couple Lurkers for 3 or 4 tanks and a handful of bio units, and you're like, oh, that would be okay if this was a game where you had a good economy. This game, Reynor has a good economy. So does HeRoMaRinE, though, to be fair. A bit of a Widow Mine drop, kills 10 drones. Easily replaced, but Reynor might not even bother. He does replace them. That is a very scary army. Widow Mine actually connects and takes out a lot of Banelings, helps to injure the Lurker, and HeRoMaRinE is going to continue pushing this side since there's still no creep spread. And my god, he's making this look easy. The Lurkers are sieged up, but they don't have the adaptive talents quite yet, so an awkward move into the bio, but then, ooh, an awkward blinding cloud for HeRoMaRinE. Good Widow Mine shots take out the Banelings and the Overseer. Lurkers coming in awkwardly past the Widow Mine field. Hatchery has fallen down, and the Liberators also creating a bit of a line in the sand, the same way that the Lurkers have. But look at this, Reynor actually gets across the map with a lot of Lings. They're not super well upgraded, but they are causing a lot of ruckus, something that HeRoMaRinE has to focus on outside of just his push. Another thing that he was unable to do in the first game. Reynor was never on HeRoMaRiNE's side of the map, not in any convincing way anyways. The Lings do draw a lot of fire, but the Nidus Worms do not get up. Could have been a threat if the Lings were actually on top of the production, but they were kind of in every single base, killing a lot of SCVs, but not as many SCVs have gone down as the drones, actually. Started with the 10 drones, the Widow Mine drop, and then I guess on a transfer a bunch went down or something like that. Another double Nidus Worm in the main base, and HeRoMaRinE is paying attention. He's also being attacked in the front lines, trying to take care of Lurkers, trying to snipe those Vipers. It looks like he's not actually paying attention, and there's not enough reinforcements to take care of this anymore. This is about to get really, really dangerous. HeRoMaRinE also overstimmed on the front lines, not with the Siege Liberators, starting to lose out on army in a big, big way. He's got another army off to the left side, and he still has a good supply, but none of it's in the main base. But look at that. Nothing in the Nidus Worms. That was a big threat that could have come to fruition, but it doesn't. And Liberator sieged up. Probably say, no, don't pop out of that Nidus Worm. HeRoMaRinE with that left side attack actually manages to go all across the map into Reynor's 4th base, get on top of perhaps a hatchery, maybe some more drones will end up falling. The planetary is under fire by the Lurkers, and then it looks like it's going to be a goner. A couple Widow Mines still guarding, I guess, what could be a drone transfer. More Nidus Worms in the main base coming down, because why the hell not? This Nidus Worm not being taken care of at all, and actually this time confirmed there are units in the Nidus Worm. Chaos everywhere, and HeRoMaRinE still holding strong at almost 200 supply. He had a lot in his bank. Reynor had a decent amount in his bank, but there have been trades everywhere. Lurkers are eventually going to get concaved on. Widow Mine's actually getting shots on them is funny to see. A nasty loss of resources there for Reynor, to be honest. As one of his bases being denied mining by a single Liberator. The Vipers are supposed to clean that up, but they also have other duties, so it's getting really hard to control everything perfectly. Liberators also on this base are going to get a lot of canceled eggs. I guess there were Hydras maybe that were coming out of those. And whew, things have finally calmed down a little bit, but dear God, everything was happening at once. 5 Widow Mines, maybe want to be saved, yeah, I was going to say. Could be quite helpful. 1 gets the shot off, so not really saved at all. Liberator gets taken out too. HeRoMaRinE and Reynor now at perfectly even supplies. So funny to see. Reynor was never able to quite get to a +3 attack, but he did get to a +3 weapons or armor, sorry. And funnily enough, HeRoMaRinE only got to +3 weapons and has been denied or forgot his +3 armor. So upgrades shockingly even. This game shockingly even. I'm not really sure what to call it for. It goes down a lot to control. Can everyone have all of their units in the right place at the right time, controlling them correctly too? Those Vipers actually going after a Liberator that died. So one Abduct was, I guess, quote-unquote wasted. Another Abduct did go down. Now the Vipers are out of juice. The Lurkers, though, still a very powerful presence. The Bio is going to be able to concave on top of them. And how many Lurkers are even left over? Reynor down to just 5. Pure Ling Hydra does not actually match up against a Bio army, even with some decent upgrades. That Nidus from in the main base. This is actually the 5th or 6th Nidus from in the main base. Doesn't really get a whole lot done. Another Abduct goes down a Liberator, but HeRoMaRiNE's got more. And he's still got a good concave. There's not that many Lurkers. He's got to be careful, but it looks like he's actually sized up the situation correctly enough. Liberators are able to take down a couple more Hydras. Army's going to evacuate after killing a 5th base, a pretty important 6th base, sorry. 5th base actually still up and running. Looks like the Liberator that was there was finally taken out a while ago. HeRoMaRinE has moved over one of his orbital commands. Looks like maybe just an extra orbital that he had over onto that 5th, which is usually, you know, you're pretty much hoping for 1 full muling and then that's it. And then some Lings find it. But with the game being so action-packed and back and forth, I'm actually not certain that Reynor will ever remember to send Lings across the map to scout for that. He's got his own worries about his own economy. Another 6th base being denied. And the army is encroaching. Scans still available for killing those creep tumors, which has been... I mean, it's still very important for Reynor to have creep tumors. He needs sight on where the army is to respond appropriately. He can't just let that go. But once the creep tumors are dead, I'm not sure you can replace them. I mean, how many queens are we talking about? Just 2 queens. And they got to be injecting at least a little bit. Big Ling run by finally happening, but into one of the better locations for HeRoMaRinE to defend, right into his production line. The Lings are forced to escape. If they tried the 5th base, they'd actually find a lot of success. Creep still very abundant in the middle of the map, means that Reynor has no problem defending the middle. Viper's even looking for a couple of Abducts, perhaps. Lings do finally find that 5th base, and even with a single Liberator there to defend, that was more so against Lurkers than it was against Lings. SCVs are trying to be saved as HeRoMaRinE is dipped below 60 workers. Still not a bad count to have, though. 56 is not bad at all with the amount of orbitals he actually has, although he's been using a lot of mules as scans instead, and actually might be 1 less orbital soon. Does raise it against the Lurkers, but here come the Hydras. Engaged with the either side of the map. Liberator's actually trying to tackle Vipers is exactly what you want to do with them. HeRoMaRiNE's going to pull it back. You really need to take this a bit more slower. The engagement is a bit slower for him to really find the best success. He wants a concave, he wants his Liberator sieged up. Reynor, on the other hand, wants to find him out of position, wants to find those beautiful Abducts, or even a couple Blinding Clouds, honestly, wouldn't be too bad. Lurks coming in from behind, actually, as HeRoMaRinE is forced into a very difficult position, and he's just going to tap out. Damn, GG. Well played by both players, but Reynor is not going to get 3-0'd. Oof, that's a lot to keep up with. Need to add some ghosts. Maybe. Ghosts are,
Resubscription received.
useful but hard to use
Something right, Captain.
in those really fast types of games where you're trying to be everywhere at once. You know, snipe literally is no longer snipe. It's steady shot. It takes, you know, 2 seconds before it actually fires. City Wanderer, thank you for the 4-month resub. That was a very hard-fought game by both players. Their perspectives might have been pretty damn impressive. In the top left of Romanticide, we have HeRoMaRinE. In the bottom right, we have Reynor. That was one of those matches that just is really... It shows the hope of what StarCraft could look like in the future. It's happening right now in TvZ, as we just saw. But it's one of those examples you would show someone who only likes Brood War. And they're still holding on to this idea that, like, StarCraft 2 is all about just a big death ball. And once you win with the death ball, you just win. That's an excellent game to show them. It happens the most in TvZ, and that's why people love it. It's back and forth, it's action-packed. Tiny skirmishes that eventually lead up to a lead, that eventually lead to a win, but not 100%. Can definitely be brought back. I think PvP has also gotten pretty close to it a lot of the time as well. Lots of small skirmishes happening in the later games of PvP, where it's all Blink Stalker, Disruptor, Charge Out Run-Bys, CT Run-Bys, that type of stuff. But it's not exactly happening in the other matchups 100%. I think PvZ is definitely the biggest culprit for kind of one and done. One big death ball. I mean, even TVP, I think, is less death ball-y. Although it can seem death ball-y. It's kind of Protoss's thing. Thank you very much for the sick finals cast. Donation $50. Great job. Wow, thank you very much. That was a real test. I feel like I should have been standing up for that one. Don't know how you kept up with it. I kind of kept up. Unfortunately, when it's a game like that, the first thing to go down the tubes is observing. I can't really take the time to like show things as they deserve to be shown because I'm so busy trying to commentate and pay attention and then also go to the next thing. Whereas if you're just observing, that game's also pretty damn hectic, no doubt about it. Observers would also struggle to keep up there. The observer can kind of like predict a little bit better. They can be like, okay, I'm gonna watch this one and then that one's gonna be pretty important in just a second here and that one's coming up soon. Whereas for me, I'm just like, this thing is happening right now as I'm speaking and then I have to go with something else right now. No thinking. Ugh. Third CC build here from HeRoMaRinE. That last game did start with him doing something pretty cheeky and being thoroughly scouted. I was fairly convinced from the way that game was around 10 or 11 minutes, was it? I was pretty convinced that Reynor was just gonna win. That he had grown too large, too big to fail. I used that exact phrase. The creep was looking good, the economy was astounding, the technology was up there. He was really in his prime zone for using his lurkers. I thought HeRoMaRinE wouldn't be able to combat him. And as soon as I brought it up is when HeRoMaRinE turned it on. Turned on the ignition. He started dropping everywhere. Pushing everywhere. Continuing to expand as well. Super impressive play. I want instantaneous snipe. Yeah. Yeah, so do we. Unfortunately, at this point, it'll be pretty overpowered, I think. The game's been balanced around steady shots since Legacy of the Void came out, so... Reynor's best of 5. I think he can reverse sweep. He is actually probably one of the best players I can think of about reverse sweeps. If you ask me who do you think has the most reverse sweeps in StarCraft, I'd actually would probably go with Reynor. And then I guess Cyril's up there too, but I just feel like Cyril more often. He just got so good he was already up 2-0. You know, he doesn't ever start down 0-2. Ooh, the queen! She's gonna fall, but maybe Lings can get us around. They got us around to 1 Hellion. Second Hellion might go down as well. Can't really take the time to shoot. Ooh, save him! Ah, that last shot, man. That Ling had to reach. That Ling had like a Michael Phelps arm, you know? Like, I actually want to rewind and watch it because I'm pretty sure it didn't actually touch. I'm just saying. Creep continued to be spread out on our mana side as a Zerg player in this matchup. You do want to take the forward third. Get that creep out there, and then also try and break down these rocks before about 7 minutes. Double Banshee might be a bit of a surprise. They do reveal themselves to an active creep tumor. I actually got a full scout, just kidding. 3rd CC and Cloak was scouted by the Overlord, so Reynor not at all surprised. Has Spore Crawlers, has an Overseer with Queens. And the Banshees will have to try their luck elsewhere. Alien's not really being super active on the front lines. They're trying to ward off any run-bys instead, which means that the creep on the front lines is getting a little bit out of control. Not even just on the front lines. The active creep tumor is actually replaced already. So he's going to continue creep spreading through the middle, through the left, and the far left too. Still active right there. Baneliness coming down after a very fast Spire, so he did go for a faster lair. Could have been for that Banshee defense into double upgraded Hydras. Lings and then into Hydras, right? But he is only just getting the Evolution Chambers, so that's like one of the big differences. Without those being slapped down, that's when you predict the really fast Spire. And there it is. HeRoMaRinE might not be thinking about this at all, considering the last 3 games that they've played. Reynor's been avoiding Mutalisk. So 8 just suddenly appearing could be a fright. They usually aren't that big of a deal. Maybe they'll kill a couple more SCVs than they should have, but usually they're used defensively first because around 7 minutes is when the Terran's first push comes in. Reynor looking to scare it off there, but knowing he doesn't quite have enough units. HeRoMaRinE is just shy of having his 1-1 and his combat shields. The mutas are not going to be used defensively first. They actually did go across the map, get caught up killing a couple of Banshees, which actually gives HeRoMaRinE just a little bit of notice to pull back the army and start slapping down missile turrets. Oh, and not kill his own command center. Oh no. That's what he was doing, you guys. I think he was trying to kill the unbuildable plates. I'm not sure, but that was a bit awkward. But yeah, the most important thing about that is that the mutas don't shock you, and then you just keep your Marines over on the front lines, because that's how you lose. So HeRoMaRinE is able to very calmly deal with the mutas, as much of a surprise as they might have been, even almost killing 1 or maybe 2, could even get a 3rd one. It is so weak, he really wants it. But Reynor's able to dodge and weave just out of range of the Marines. It does mean that he's being corralled and not doing any damage, buying any time, buying much time anyways. So that's something that HeRoMaRinE can try and work with as he does continue to push. Oh, there you go. Mutas flying over Marines, as weak as they were. A couple of them did go down. A big Ling run-by is being set up, however. Banelings included. The Marines perfectly placed are reacted to. There's that misclick on the unbuildable plates that he was trying to kill earlier on. Whoops-a-daisy. A tank does pop out, and this should be something that he can actually defend eventually, but this is the big distraction. HeRoMaRiNE's actually trying to push on a creep right now, and a lot of creep at that, trying to siege his tanks forward. This is where distractions are absolutely deadly for either player. 17 SCVs have gone down, but it looks like Reynor actually not prepared to defend against this. Loses some mutas on the rally. He's already lost a 5th, is about to lose his 3rd. Ooh, HeRoMaRiNE doing some good work despite losing a good chunk of his economy. He is on 8 barracks. He is pretty committed to the 3 base. It gives him a lot of power, a lot of reinforcements. And Reynor was not quite set up to deal with this. Mute is still not really finding any success, by the way. He built 8 from the get-go. He's at 9 right now. He's lost 5 in total. That's not good. 4 14 mutas could actually do a lot in terms of taking on medevacs or tanks. 9, not as much. And to be honest, if you're up against an 8-Rax player, you don't really necessarily want to be investing so much into the mutas as much as you want to be investing into Ling Baneling and trying to defend. It seems like all is lost for Reynor as he's defending in his own natural. Doesn't mean he's entirely on creep, however. Maybe that could actually cut it. Baneling's hitting some good connections to the north, but not enough to the south. And HeRoMaRinE is going to 3-1 Reynor in the finals of this Open Cup. GG. HeRoMaRinE, he might have lost a game, but it was one of the closest, most action-packed games I've ever seen. And otherwise, takes the 3 games, wins against Reynor. That was actually probably the best HeRoMaRinE I've seen in a while. And if he can actually show that...